Welcome everybody. This is the NIRSA Ideas in Motion virtual roundtable for event services. My name is Kathryn Dunn. I am at Loyola University Chicago, and I'm going to let my co-facilitators introduce themselves.
Hi, I am Adrianna. I'm at the University of Maine.
My name is Ryan Kirchner. I am at the University of Utah.
All right, we're gonna get started, but just as a friendly reminder, everybody's on mute to start with. We'd love to see your faces. We would love to hear you talking. It goes so much better if you all unmute yourselves to answer questions and share with each other instead of just us reading off your responses. So we would love to hear you talk. We'll get started with our first question that we pulled up for the day. Is there any event that you are refreshing to make virtual in COVID times?
Hey everybody, I'm Ross Rodriguez with the University of Texas at Austin. We are looking at refreshing how we do our Welcome Week events. Typically, we cap off our Welcome Week with a giant event that we call Party on the Plaza, and we welcome or we showcase about 350 student organizations in front of our main facility. And so we're refreshing that along with our Rec Sports warm-up event, which is usually typically an in-person demonstrations, sport club information, and fitness classes to do most of that.
How are you refreshing that to make it new or feasible?
Right now, we're just trying to make it feasible to make it virtual so that people can still attend, but not necessarily have to maybe put people at risk of exposure.
Awesome. Is anybody from University of Central Florida on the chat? I know they were doing some sort of sports club showcase Zoom meeting the other day that looked cool. Nobody?
I know we've just thinking about and starting the planning for when our staff comes back, our all staff training, and we've almost completed that to be completely online. Just giving our students time to get back to campus when they're comfortable. So it's like a 2-week window that we put modules on Canvas that they can just get that mandatory training in, but don't have to be actually in the Student Life Center on campus to complete that.
Nice.
Adrian, Northwestern, it's a little far off, but we are looking at how we can do our health and benefits fair virtually. It typically caters to faculty, staff, community. Not that students can't participate, but I know we're worried about opening our doors versus something that happens in October, but more to come on that.
Awesome, thanks, Adrian. We're looking at Welcome Week as what can we do to program that doesn't have people in large groups, but doesn't also have them attached to a computer screen. So something we're working on doing is a 5K run that they can record on Strava at any point during Welcome Week. We're still playing with how to theme it. We want to do something that matches up with Convocation because that's such an important tradition at Loyola. We want to somehow theme it so they get some sort of attachment to Convocation and the start of their journey at Loyola. So we're playing with that idea, working at some sort of fun name or a way to theme it. Who else is doing something refreshed?
I know one thing I can add, I'm also the Utah state leader, so thinking about state meetings, and we're running around some ideas of doing just like a Zoom meeting, not necessarily all in one day where we all have to sit down, but spread out over a week, where it's like maybe around lunch break or mid-morning, you can come check a session out and then go on with your day. So it's not as a big time constraint in the beginning, it's more of just a little bit each day. So we're still kind of weighing in on if that should be done or if we should do something in person. But still, we don't know at this time, just figuring it out.
What else is everybody doing for Welcome Week and training?
Yeah, similar to everyone else, we're also moving our big all staff training onto a virtual platform. I know a lot of people are using Canvas. We're going to be using Google Classrooms, and you know, it's going to be, some portions are going to be live, some portions are going to be a series of videos we already recorded for our students to watch.
Does anybody have any programs that they're like, hey, we always do this and we're hitting this problem that this group can help you problem solve maybe? Something you're looking for an idea around? Feel free to throw those in the chat or unmute yourself and add them to the conversation.
I think a big issue that we're all going to run into is the unpredictability of everything, and just combating, you know, are we going to be in person or are we going to be virtual? And if we're in person, what is our capacity? So I think just struggling with that is a big one for everyone.
Mm-hmm. What other questions do you all have that you want to talk about? Is there ideas you want to work on? Y'all are a quiet group today.
I know one thing we were discussing beforehand, just everyone seems like they're trying to figure out when they're going to open, plans, 15 different plans of what if this, what if this. And we were talking like special events is kind of like one step behind that, at least from my point of view. It's like, let's get opening and be thinking about special events. But once we open, how are we going to move forward talking about special events, prioritizing them, staffing, what that will look like? So at least from my point of view at my university, it's kind of in like this waiting zone where let's figure out what we got to do to get open and get the doors open, people in, staff back safely, and then we'll start addressing those special event priorities.
Does anybody have, I know Adrian mentioned the health fair coming up that's mainly for faculty staff, but does anybody else have any events that they're still planning on hosting this coming semester?
I know we have a couple planned, but it's planned with like probably not going to happen kind of thing. We have a couple like talking about welcome weeks that we have our fingers crossed, but it's not looking good. And then things throughout the semester that we usually hold in different areas or different program areas that it's the same thing. Like we hope we can get to a spot where we can run those or modify them where we can still give a great service to the students.
For our programming, we're planning to, we're setting up all our plans and setting all of our dates for the fall, but also planning for them to be virtual. So Mainbound, our outdoor programming department, is, you know, they had No Man's Land Film Festival in which participants went to the Adventure Center to actually watch the video. In April, we couldn't have that happen, so we transitioned that to be virtual. So, you know, kind of like a plan A and then a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
Ross had a question for the group. Is anybody a shared use facility for athletics? And if so, have you received any word on plans to host NCAA competitions?
We do have a shared lacrosse field and a shared track, but we have not had those conversations with them yet about what they're going to do hosting competitions or anything like that. We've opened the track to the public And that's about it. Just the track. There's a field inside that is not open. But we haven't had those discussions with athletic at the University of Utah yet.
At Northwestern, recreation is part of athletics. We, as far as I know, have not had those conversations. I know one thing as we're kind of figuring out what our reentry plan looks like is sometimes athletes cut through our building to get to their side of the house. And if that'll cause any capacity issues or any limitations, or, just making sure that we're abiding by state law. And not having too many people in a building or in a space. But other than that, I have not been a part of those conversations, but I know our pool definitely is shared, as well as our tennis center space is shared.
Is anybody hosting? So Loyola University Chicago has made a decision to have as many classes as possible on campus in the fall. So they're repurposing rooms across campus, including our basketball courts, as classroom space. Is anybody else dealing with that, and how to kind of regulate, like, is the student coming in for class, or are they coming in for a workout? Anybody else looking at that at all?
I can share from Arizona State University. At all of our locations, we have lots of spaces that we share with academic colleges, and that actually just came up yesterday as a question for us of how are we going to navigate, especially in a couple of our smaller facilities, determining if a student is coming in to use our space or coming in for class. And in some of our spaces, that's posed a real problem and something that we have to think through. So I'm eager to hear if anyone has ideas on how to do that. Because most of the issues that we're running into is some of our pathways to get to the academic spaces are so small, it's going to cause an issue as far as keeping appropriate spacing and such. But we haven't come up with a solution at this point yet.
Thanks, Courtney. Has anybody already opened and dealing with sharing spaces? No. What questions do you all have that you all want to talk about? Do you have any problem solving you need around events?
We've got one question. Is anyone on a list to become an acute care facility / field hospital to support your local healthcare systems?
At the University of Arizona, we're not doing anything associated with the hospital, but facility management on campus. We just got word that we're going to be using one of our gyms for antibody testing, and that's going to be starting in July and going through the end of Thanksgiving break. So we're going to have that in one of our gyms, and then they're also using another one of our gyms to begin kind of assembly line and construction for automatic paper towel dispensers and faucets, to kind of repurpose a bunch of those throughout campus so that everything's touchless.
That's awesome. Ross, you might want to, I don't know if anybody from University of New Hampshire is on this call, but they tend to get pushed into being a facility when it's needed for everything and anything. Like, hey, there's a winter storm coming through, you're now a shelter. Hey, we need extra hospital beds, you're now a hospital bed. They might be a good resource to reach out to.
Yeah, we reached out to them a few months ago, in March specifically, when obviously the big COVID wave hit America, and we were asked to start planning to become an acute care site. And then that kind of dropped off the radar for us. And then there's now rumblings that with Texas and Austin specifically starting to see spikes, that conversation may be brought back onto the table. So we have our plan in place. We just wanted to see if anyone had been asked to take on that role at this time and to see how that had been going for them at this time.
I know one of the our system school, UMaine System School in Portland, their facility was being used for a homeless shelter for a few months, but I think that is coming to an end either at the end of this month or early next month. So.
Looks like Andy posted in the chat, how are student officials going to be trained in your program? Is anybody doing intramurals, and how are you hoping to train them this fall? Anybody have feedback on training intramural officials?
Sorry, this is Brian Bean from UConn. I had to run back to the microphone. We are planning on virtual training and with a select amount of on-court, on-field training. That of course we'll have to socially distance, but most of the rules, the first clinics that we usually have in person, and we show them the amazingly interesting PowerPoint slideshows. That will all be virtual, and then we'll bring them in. Unclear right now, but we'll bring them in some capacity to train them on the court or on the field.
I'm not involved with our intramural training, but I know we are looking at, we certify all of our staff in CPR and first aid and AED use through American Red Cross. So we're looking at how we can change that. We normally do just a big class with all of the pro staff as instructors, and we knock out, 100 certifications in a day. So we're looking at doing, we'd already transitioned a little bit to blended learning, but how can we do that in smaller groups? We're planning on.
Kathryn, this is Andy Hamilton. I appreciate you letting me talk real quick, and I appreciate everybody mentioning how they're doing their stuff with their universities. And I just wanted to let everybody know that we work closely with NIRSA. I work with Zoom app, and we're actually providing some online e-learning materials for all of the campus rec officials. So if any of you guys or girls are interested in that, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can find us on the NIRSA website. And we're even in the process now of creating some training materials to where it'll have the film to back it up. It'll have the quizzing modules built into it. It has tracking features to where you guys can track the officials training. This way they don't have to come into a certain location, and you guys can just send the material out to them. So like I said, if you'd like to get that, just let me know. I'd love to help you guys in any way we can.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome. Thanks.
It looks like a really good question in the chat from Kevin. If events are traditionally revenue generating, are you increasing the cost due to more staff needed or PPE needed? And will you likely see a reduction in participant capacity? Will you still be hosting events anticipating revenue generation? Or have you kind of changed courses and said we're not aiming for revenue generation this fall?
No, for us, the capacities will probably be down. I couldn't imagine some of the bigger events that we will be able to hold them, just looking at the CDC guidelines. Yeah, and revenue is not going to be on the forefront of our minds. It's going to be staff safety, student safety, and giving the best product that we can in this current situation.
We don't tend to do a lot of events that are revenue generating, but we do swimming lessons is a huge revenue generator for us. So we are looking at comparing the price to what others in the city around us are doing. That was already a discussion though before COVID hit. We were looking at, are our prices in line? Can we earn a little bit more to then put back into our student staff? But we are looking at upping revenue. We're also stopping group lessons for the time being and only doing private lessons. So we anticipate we'll lose a few families that way, but we'll also gain some money off of families who transition from group lessons to private lessons. So that's something we're looking at. We're not necessarily charging more money because more PPE is needed, but looking to get in line with the rest of the city. Does anybody else do revenue generating events?
And hey, Kevin here, the guy who asked the question. Part of the reason why I asked the question is I'm up in Canada, and our youth sport is going to be completely canceled for the fall semester, which means we actually will have a lot more space on campus that we potentially have to optimize. Because obviously when we don't have sports running, the varsity sport, it will mean that there's more space that is either unused or kind of unoccupied, and therefore we're kind of trying to work through and think of, okay, do we maintain this philosophy of trying to maintain or generate revenue through these events, or are we just going to go through a period of time where we just try to optimize the space as much as possible so we don't have facility downtime?
Yeah, that's a really great a question right now. I know Loyola is focusing on not bringing outside people onto campus as much as possible, so that swimming lessons is the one thing they've been okay with. But the fear is that if we say, oh yeah, rent this space and we generate some money for it, it also means we're bringing more people in contact into our building, putting more of our student staff in danger. So that's kind of Loyola's philosophy. But
I know we've started conversations with the fitness program, like most are doing some kind of Zoom classes. We've talked about trying to utilize our track a little bit for just a fun run meetup, or like some kind of boot camp stuff on our field. It's still trying to figure all that out, but we're trying to get some ideas about how to use some spaces for different events that we usually don't use. So fitness was an easy one to start kind of thinking about, okay, how can we use the track? How can we use the field? And what would that take moving forward?
that's kind of a great idea. Is anybody moving traditional events or classes or things that you hold outside to make them more feasible? Do you have the space on your campus to do that? Ooh, Terry has a really great question. Terry, would you mind coming off of mute and talking that through with us? Maybe. Okay, well, Terry asked, she says they hold many age group swim meets. Is anybody considering virtual meets with other area swim teams? I love that idea. I feel like we could take that in different directions too. Maybe it's not just swim meets. Could you hold a virtual, if you have a running club, can you hold a virtual track meet? Oh.
I know one thing I've thought about, we've introduced, this was going to be the first year we've done a boulder league for climbing. So several months out of the year, you come in, climb these problems, and then we'll have a big kind of competition at the end. And in the back of my mind, I'm starting to think that maybe that's not a reality, but people could still come in and participate. And then if we could format the finals in a way where people could come in one at a time or teams one at a time. And the virtual aspect of it is definitely appealing. Maybe we could film it, put it online if people want, just watch it live. So definitely throwing around some ideas like that, because I really want that to go. I was really excited about it and still am.
I love that idea because it means we're not asking our participants, our members, to sit in front of a computer again, to be connected. It's something that they can be out doing and then check in, but spending less time focused on a computer screen, which I think we all need right now.
Hi, Kathryn. Thanks for unmuting me. Having issues with my computer today. We host probably, when I start event season, we start in October and we don't get done until the middle of March. So trying to figure out how we're going to have any of these age group just swim meets, how we're going to have, in December, we usually host a meet that has 1,100 kids, which obviously we're not going to be able to do. We are money driven, like a lot of, auxiliary rec centers. So I'm not sure how that's going to look because we've not gotten any kind of guidelines. There was some talk about not having any youth sports on campus, which will be crazy for our budget. So, I guess my question with virtual meets is, do we need to pay sanction fees for all of them? Do you figure out how you host in all different places? Are you going to have enough officials if you, instead of being all together, you're dispersing all of those folks? So, does anybody else have big swim meets like that where they're going to have to refigure how they do that?
Is anybody from Mizzou on the call? I know they host a lot of big swim meets. They might be a good resource. What other questions do you all have as a group that you want to talk about, think through, problem solve on?
One thing that comes to mind for me is living in Maine, we can transition a lot of our programs in the warmer months to outside, right? Our group exercise, and things like that, 5Ks. But how are we going to use spaces, outdoor spaces, as we transition to the colder months? So we can't really have group exercise outside when it's cold. Oh, yep, Canada is pretty cold too. We're basically Canada, so.
Our Ramble Outdoors department is doing a lot good right now. They're looking at all sorts of stuff. Same idea though, we're in Chicago and once winter hits, it's not gonna be as easy, but we are looking at a lot of things like a knot tying clinic where we have, ropes equally spaced along a bar and people can stand 6 feet apart and there's an instructor teaching knot tying. That's again a smaller event, but still outside and easy to do. They're talking about a campfire clinic and a cooking, how to cook a campfire meal clinic, sort of thing.
Right. So is that just like using your indoor spaces with like the axes of where everyone can stand?
We're doing outdoor spaces as much as possible. We're lucky enough, we have the West Quad is right next to our building. So we do have some outdoor space we can use, which is helpful, but you're right. Again, once it hits winter, we're going to be out of luck on that one. Any other creative? Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I'm just going to kind of talk through a little bit of so I'm actually going to Edmonton. We'll be starting a job in Edmonton at the University of Alberta, and they have almost all of their program spaces indoors because Edmonton is extremely cold. So that's kind of why I hopped on this call, was because events will be under the intramural portfolio, and that's going to be the team that I'm going to be joining. So similar to kind of what the lady in Maine was saying, I won't have much outdoor space at all. Like the tennis courts are inside rather than outside, just because it's very cold and there isn't a whole lot of outdoor program space.
Margie just shared a great resource in the chat. If you all haven't seen that, for safe meeting spaces, set up the meeting rooms, that sort of thing. Highly encourage you to check that out. Thanks, Margie. Margie, is Colorado, Boulder planning on a lot of big events this fall or small events?
Right now, we're really up in the air on events. We're still waiting for campus to give us some direction on what events will look like. Right now, everything is canceled through July 31st, but there hasn't been any updates on what it's going to look like post July 31st, which we're getting close to that.
Yeah.
But the focus has really been on trying to get students back to campus and how to safely hold academic classes. So I totally understand why the focus hasn't been on that. So yeah, right now we're just kind of in the lurch. The state of Colorado did release guidelines on outdoor events, how to, what guidelines to use for planning those, but no official word from campus yet. So kind of in a holding pattern right now.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us are there. Is anybody doing anything with climbing, trying to move that outdoors?
No, I think it's July 7th. We have a new housing building going up that has an outdoor bouldering wall, or bouldering structure, I would say. It's like a big boulder. So we're already planning on what we could utilize that for, but then with these times, also how can we modify what we already had planned to get people on there. So it's definitely in our minds, and we're stoked to have a big outdoor, like 13-foot boulder right next to our building that our team will be route setting on, changing pretty frequently to help keep climbers engaged on a regular basis.
So our outdoor adventure center has a lot of programming like costume climbs, LGBT climbs, but we've got an indoor space. So what question we're trying to figure out right now is how we are going to offer those indoor programmings in this new normal.
I love that idea, an LGBTQ climb or a Halloween costume climb. That's so fun.
Yeah, they're actually pretty popular, and our space is pretty small. So yeah, we get a lot of participation, but the holds are so hard to sanitize. How are you going to sanitize them regularly?
Absolutely.
A lot of the gyms here, the commercial gyms, have been focusing on hand sanitation before you come in and after the climb. So more focusing on the hygiene aspect rather than the regular cleaning. The cleaning the holds after every climb, it's gonna make holds more slick, increasing the risk, getting staff on ladders. It takes a lot. That model is just really difficult to operate a business. We're a little different. We're not generating revenue for the climbing wall, but yeah, it takes a lot to clean those after every time. So we're also focusing on hand hygiene, apply.
Thank you.
The Climbing Wall Association has a lot of great info on their website, and they've been doing calls, I believe, twice a week, different commercial gyms that are open, and just talking about different resources they have.
What other stuff do you all have questions on and want to chat about, want to problem solve on? Or does anybody have a good event idea that they want to share with everybody?
I know one that has been one of our most popular besides our competitions. I manage the climbing wall as well as we have a disco after dark. So we'll close down the whole building at 10 usually, and we'll stay open just the climbing wall for 2 hours later and have a DJ come in that just plays straight disco music. We have lights that we can lower right above the bouldering wall and put some disco balls up, and everyone comes dressed up. Last semester, Backcountry sponsored it, and we had upwards of, I think, around 90 people show up. So it jumped up in participation, and it's just a fun way to give back to the students and let loose a little bit.
Yeah, we do a 5K outside, a headlight 5K outside, and that's one of the ones that maybe we can do. We do it in the fall, so it's still warm enough here to be outside. So instead of doing, the virtual 5Ks, maybe we can gather in a little bit smaller groups for this headlight 5K.
That's an awesome idea. I wonder if also that's a easy way to pull in your outdoors program. Our program checks out headlamps, so maybe that's something we can co-host with our outdoors area. Intramurals and outdoors can combine and do a headlamp 5K. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's actually who puts it on at our school. So intramurals and main bound.
What other events are you hosting that are creative, or maybe not you're hosting this semester, but you're hoping to return to that are creative and you can share with the group when we're once again a world free from COVID? No really great events that you want to spotlight?
Feel free to chat in if you have any good ideas for awesome programs that we could all learn and grow from. For your normal programming, how do y'all staff these programs? I can get started. So for us, it's usually a combination of professional staff and student staff, but we're really lucky where all of our sport club groups through sport clubs, they're required to have a minimum number of volunteer hours each semester. So we get help from them, free help from them to staff our really big events. For example, in the pool world, they help staff Canoe Battleship, and then all of our big 5Ks. So that's really helpful, and it helps decrease the price of things.
No, our special events are all staffed with either a facility manager or a intramural supervisor. Both are experts on outdoor and indoor spaces, and then we just kind of cross-train together. That way we can bring aware of different facilities and kind of pro tips that they've learned along the way. Another event that we don't necessarily run but happens in our building, the Center for Student Wellness, do wellness walks on our indoor track, where you can come in and sit with a student wellness supervisor. I forget what their names are. There's some kind of acronym, but then they walk around the track, talk about different wellness opportunities around campus, what the Student Life Center and the Wellness Center has to offer. And that's something that we just started working with the Center for Student Wellness last semester. It was pretty cool.
I love that idea. I just wrote that down so we can reach out to our wellness center to see about partnering.
Yeah, and numbers wise, I mean, it's one-on-one, trying to keep it super comfortable for both individuals. So even in this time, it seems something that could be feasible.
Is anybody focusing on getting sponsors this semester to kind of help cut costs? I don't know if there's a ton of sponsors out there right now, but is anybody looking at that? No.
I know another thing, I was on a call yesterday and I thought it was kind of interesting to hear what people had to say. Not special events aside, like this is an interesting time. We're all usually at our homes more than the norm, but what's something that you have taken up or do to kind of take care of yourself a little more? Some of them that came up was reading more, try to learn to play the guitar, I started to run again. So kind of, I'm interested to see like, how are people taking care of themselves in this time where it's, yeah, definitely difficult situation for work and personal life. Maybe take up crocheting, I don't know.
Margie
yeah.
just added in to add to on the event staff piece. Since we are anticipating special events to be a lot less, we are using our special events staff to help with cleaning the facility for the time being. So that cross training is a really big topic coming up lately.
I know that's going to be a lot of what's going on at Utah as well. We're in a period where some students don't feel comfortable coming back. Some are just going to stay at home with online classes. So we're in a hiring freeze. So we're going to need to bring a lot of people on and pull help from where we can. So we've already discussed having students that are interested in learning other areas to be able to jump on board and do a little training to get going.
All right, friends, we don't want to waste your time. We're still around if anybody wants to chat a little bit longer, but we want to thank you for coming. Is anybody interested in hosting another event services roundtable? Not necessarily hosting, but joining another event services roundtable maybe in about a month? All right, Ross is in, even if nobody else is. Beautiful. Looks like we've got some folks interested. Thanks for coming today. We'll be here if you have other questions or want to talk further. Bye, everyone.